Hey everybody, hope everybody's doing really well. I want to give you an update on this goat amp. This will be the last time you see it in here. It's been completed, and I know some of you asked about how I was going to ventilate. You'll see I have a round vent in there. It's a 2.5-inch vent on that side, and I have one on this side. Also, our good friend Bill, old 64 Goat, said he'd love to hear a demo, so we'll do that too. You just saw Bill over there. So here's the top. I'm going to just complete putting a piece of masonite over here just to hold that down, but I've got that in there just for better sound. And here's our amp right there, and our power cord is right in here, tucked inside this little hole, just like so. Okay, we're going to take that, we're going to plug it in, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get a guitar, and we're going to play a couple of tunes on this thing and see what it sounds like. So let me get that set up, and I'll be right back. There's a goat. I'll be right back. Alright, we've got our amp powered on. I just noticed that my bulb is out, so I got to replace that bulb. But the amp is on. Put the treble and bass up a little bit. Watch the meter. Alright, so you get the idea. So there she is. So we'll change out that bulb and we'll be good to go here. So that's the goat amp. But there is something I want to show you before we wrap the video up. I want to show you what my next project is, and we're going to talk a little bit about that Crossley 124. So let's end this segment with be right back. Just because I like to be thorough, the lamp is fixed. Right there. Okay? Alright, this amp is really done. Let's bring up the next thing. Alright, so our Crossley 124. It's a very interesting problem that I can't solve, but I'm not giving up on it. So the radio works just great except for the oscillator. I've checked the wiring 3,000 times. Everything is wired correctly. I can put a signal generator on the antenna, and if I tune the signal generator, I can tune in stations. If I put the signal generator on the first detector grid, I get stations crystal clear. Sounds beautiful. So clearly my oscillator's not working. Still haven't figured out why, and I'm going to keep working on that until I figure it out. But until that time, I'm going to start a new series. And then when the Crossley gets fixed, we'll bring it back. So let me show you what we're going to work on, and then I'll tell you the story behind it. Be right back. All right, so what you're looking at here is a Ward's Airline farm radio, battery powered, no AC. And this was sent to me by a good friend, John from Arkansas. And basically what his advice was, Ron, you need to work on something more complicated. You got the other stuff down pretty well. You need to work on something that's really a challenge. And I appreciate John for that, because I do love challenges. And this set is going to be a challenge. It's a full battery set, and you'll see it needs some work. There's a bezel that goes here that John sent out. And my goal is going to be to build a power supply with a transformer and put a plug on it, obviously, that I could use this as a AC set. It's got 4 tubes in it, and I'll go through the tube lineup with you. So it has a 1N 5GT, a 1H 5GT, a 1A 5GT, and a 1A 7GT. Now the problem with this is that the chassis is marked with model number 4B13. I cannot find any schematic at all for Ward's Airline for a 4B13. I've searched high and low, there's nothing. The only thing I found on the Radio Museum site was a model 4B11 and a series WG/C. And that one was a suitcase radio, and I believe it was AC powered. However, continuing to dig through sets that had basically a 1N5 GT tube, I came across a Belmont set, and it's a Belmont 4B113, and it's basically the same radio with the exception of the output tube. In this radio, it's a 1A5 GT, and that radio, it's a 3Q5G5. Right, and it's basically the same tube. You can set it up to use that tube for three. You could set this up to use for either a 1.5 volt filament or a 3 volt filament. So I still don't have a schematic for the radio, and that will be something I'll need to continue to look for. But what I'm going to do is I have one of those antique radio battery eliminators. I'm sure you've all heard about these things, the ARB3. I have one of those. I bought that when I was restoring my Atwater Kent Model 20, and that's how I powered it up with the horn speaker. That was before I was doing videos, so you guys didn't see that. I got to take that out one day and show you. But I have the battery eliminator, and this unit calls for 90 volts B plus and 1.5 filament. So I have that. I can theoretically connect this thing right now. You know, on this radio, it's through this little plug here. They give you a plug for the battery. I can connect it and see if it works. But first thing I'm going to do is take the radio out of the chassis. I want to show you what the chassis looks like underneath. It's pretty interesting. And then we'll go from there. So let me flip this over, take the back off, and I'll show you what it looks like. And you'll notice there's no label on here that says Ward's Airline. Now, it does say on the bezel, which, let me show you. Let me do this before I flip it over. On the bezel, it does say airline. So it's definitely an airline radio. No question about that. All right, let's flip it over. Before I move the back, I just want to show you over here, it's a super sensitive built-in airwave loop aerial system. And over here it says Ward's Airline Radio. Here's a bunch of patent numbers. This is the tube lineup right here. And just in case you're following along, that 1A5GT is the output. The 1H5GT is the second detector. The 1A7GT is the first detector. And the 1N5GT is the IF. You'll see it has the A battery at 1.5 volts and the B battery at 90 volts. And this is the way the batteries went in this thing. Let's remove these little clips. We'll pull the shot back a little bit and pull the camera up. Let's remove these clips and see what we have inside. And these are the clips that they use to hold it in. We don't want to lose those. This is cardboard, obviously, or a cardboard derivative from 1930s. I'm guessing this set is probably 1939, but I'm not sure because I don't know the model. I don't have the schematic and all that stuff. When you take this off, there's a loop antenna under here, which I'll have to show you separately because I don't want to break the wires. But here's the inside. So you'll see there's tube shields, and this is your battery section here. I'm going to change the shot so you can see this a little bit better. So let me adjust that. I'll be right back. Okay, so this is the wire that connects to the batteries, and you'll see that they have these little terminal blocks here, right? Which are basically the connections that go back to the chassis. All right, so they've got these little terminal deals here, and that's how you get your power. So they've got this little standoff thing here, which is pretty cool, made out of wood, and these are insulated, I would imagine. And they're basically just, you know, ways to get the battery power over there where it's needed. And you'll notice that the chassis is only a half chassis. There's not a lot of radio in here. I haven't taken this thing out yet to see if anybody's been messing with it. I'm going to assume no. And you'll see it's got a nice speaker in it right there. So it looks like it's fairly original. I don't see any evidence of anybody messing around in here. Looks like the tuning cap is pretty beat up or rusty. Probably needs a good soak in the evaporust. That's no problem. And it looks like the dial string is missing and the pointer is missing. So we'll figure that out too. But our next step is going to be, let's get this this chassis out of here. I want to see if I can do that without too much damage. So I would have to remove all this battery stuff. Do I really want to do that? I don't think so. I don't know if there's any screws here that take this out. It looks like there is a screw there. So I would have to lift out this entire block in order to get that out. So, so I'm going to do that. And let's see, the speaker is hardwired. So to get it out, I'd have to take off that speaker baffle. There's 4 screws. You can probably see 2 of them. There's one here and there's one down here, and there's 2 on top. So I'm going to have to remove everything from the case, and then we can have a look underneath and see what's going on. Basically, I could be brave and try to connect our battery eliminator here and see if it works. I pretty much know that this wire right here is my B+, and I know that this wire here is my 1.5 volt. And those 2 must be common. But there's only one thing that bothers me, and you can probably see it if I zoom in just a little bit right here. See these wires? They're all afraid. They're all afraid. No, seriously, the wires are bad. So I'm going to probably have to change those wires out before I turn anything on. I don't want anything shorting out. So maybe what I'll do is in episode 1, I'll show you how I deal with this and getting it tested. So I think what I'm going to do now is end the video, and off camera, I'll remove the chassis. And when we start the first episode of this series, we're going to take a good look at this chassis underneath and see what's under there, see if there's any capacitors that we can change, and go, that kind of thing. All right. So that's it for this episode. I will get this done and come back to you shortly with number 2. All right, and then we'll talk about the power supply that we're going to build in the next episode as well. All right, folks, have a good night.